Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm here with my good friends, Lori and Catherine. Lori is showing us her ceiling, so I'm sure she'll get that squared away and as soon as she can. And Catherine is here, so I'll let them jump out and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. We're in the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and we will be starting with hang on, I gotta get to the right Svalbard, and that's on page I don't have the page now. I'm not sure what page that is in the book. I'm using my Kindle, but that's where we'll start the reading for today. So go ahead and introduce yourselves, guys.
Lori Emmons in Denver, and I have trouble with my display and all that.
That's okay. We're just glad you're on here. And thank you for being so determined. Laura has tried several times coming on and off, and you're here, so we're happy. All right, so we're going to start at Svalbard. She woke in a small bed in a little cabin on a boat. She knew it was a boat because it was rocking, and indeed the rocking, gentle as it was, had woken her up. The cabin was spare and basic. She was wearing a thick fleece sweater and long johns. Pulling back the blanket, she noticed that she had a headache. Her mouth was so dry her cheeks felt sucked in against her teeth. She coughed, a deep, chesty cough, and felt a million pool lengths away from her body of an Olympian. Her fingers smelt of tobacco. She sat up to see a pale, blonde, robust, hard-weathered woman sitting on another bed, staring at her. "God morgen, Nora." She smiled and hoped that in this life she wasn't fluent in whatever Scandinavian language this woman spoke. "Good morning." She noticed a half-empty bottle of vodka and a mug on the floor beside the woman's bed. A dog calendar, April, Springer Spaniel, was propped up on the chest between the beds. The 3 books on top of it were all in English. The one nearest to the woman said, "Principles of Glacier Mechanics." 2 on Nora's, A Natural Guide to the Arctic, and a Penguin Classic edition of the Saga of the Volsungs, the Norse epic of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer. She noticed something else. It was cold, properly cold. The cold that almost burns, that hurts your fingers and toes and stiffens your cheeks, even inside, with layers of thermal underwear, with a sweater on, with the bars of 2 electric heaters glowing orange. Every exhale made a cloud. "Why are you here, Nora?" the woman asked in heavily accented English. A tricky question when you didn't know where here was. "Bit early in the morning, isn't it, for philosophy?" Nora laughed nervously. She saw a wall of ice outside the porthole rising out of the sea. She was either very far north or very far south. She was very far somewhere. The woman was still staring at her. Nora had no idea if they were friends or not. The woman seemed tough, direct, earthy, but probably an interesting form of company. "I don't mean philosophy. I don't even mean what got you into glaciological research, although it might be the same thing. I mean, why did you choose to go as far away from civilization as possible? You've never told me." "I don't know," she said. "I like the cold." No one likes this cold unless they are sadomasochist. She had a point. Nora reached for the sweater at the end of her bed and put it on, over the sweater she was already wearing. As she did, she saw, beside the vodka bottle, a laminated lanyard lying on the floor. "Ingrid Skirbeck, Professor of Geoscience, International Polar Research Institute." "I don't know, Ingrid. I just like glaciers, I suppose. I want to understand them, why they're melting." She wasn't sounding like a glacier expert, judging from Ingrid's raised eyebrows. "What about you?" she asked, hopefully. Ingrid sighed, rubbed her palm with a thumb. After Per died, I couldn't stand to be in Oslo anymore. All those people that weren't him, you know? There was this coffee shop we used to go to at the university. We just sit together, but silent, happy silent, reading newspapers, drinking coffee. It was hard to avoid places like that. We used to walk around everywhere. His troublesome soul lingered on every street. I kept telling his memory to piss the fuck off, but it wouldn't. Grief is a bastard. If I'd have stayed any longer, I'd have hated humanity. So when a research position came up in Svalbard, I was like, yes, this has come to save me. I wanted to be somewhere he had never been. I wanted somewhere where I didn't have to feel his ghost. But the truth is, it only half works, you know? Places are places, and memories are memories, and life is fucking life. Nora took all this in. Ingrid was clearly telling this to someone she thought she knew reasonably well, and yet Nora was a stranger. It felt odd, wrong. This must be the hardest bit about being a spy, she thought. The emotion people store in you like a bad investment. You feel like you are robbing people of something. Ingrid smiled, breaking the thought. Anyway, thanks for last night. That was a good chat. There are a lot of dickheads on this boat, and you are not a dickhead. Oh, thanks. Neither are you. And it was then that Nora noticed the gun, a large rifle with a hefty brown handle leaning against the wall at the far end of the room under the coat hooks. The sight made her feel happy somehow, made her feel like her 11-year-old self would have been proud. She was, it seemed, having an adventure. Do you want to stop or continue? I can't hear you, hon.
What do you guys think? Do you guys think there's anything there to really dig into, or I think maybe if
I'd
we go
say
into the
continue.
Continue? Okay, I'll
yeah,
go one more.
I agree.
Okay. If I can pronounce this word. Hugo Lafair. I don't know. That's a good guess. Nora walked with her headache and obvious hangover through an undecorated wooden passageway to a small dining room that smelled of pickled herring and where a few research scientists were having breakfast. She got herself a black coffee and some stale, dry rye bread and sat down. Around her, outside the window, was the most eerily beautiful sight she had ever seen. Islands of ice, like rocks rendered clean and pure white, were visible amid the fog. There were 17 other people in the dining hall, Nora counted, 11 men, 6 women. Nora sat by herself, but within 5 minutes, a man with short hair and stubble 2 days away from a full beard sat down at her table. He was wearing a parka, like most of the room, but he seemed ill-suited to it, as if he would be more at home on the Riviera wearing designer shorts and a pink polo shirt. He smiled at Nora. She tried to translate the smile, to understand the kind of relationship they had. He watched her for a little while, then shuffled his chair along to sit opposite her. She looked for a lanyard, but he wasn't wearing one. She wondered if she should know his name. I'm Hugo, he said, to her relief. Hugo Lafair. You are Nora, yes? Yes. I saw you around in Svalbard at the research center, but we never said hello. Anyway, I just wanted to say I read your paper on pulsating glaciers and it blew my mind. Really? Yes. I mean, it's always fascinated me why they do that here and nowhere else. It's such a strange phenomenon. Life is full of strange phenomena. Conversation was tempting, but dangerous. Nora smiled a small, polite smile and then looked out of the window. The islands of ice turned into actual islands, little snow-streaked pointed hills like the craggy plates of land. Oh, what? I skipped a line there. Little snow-streaked pointed hills like the tips of mountains, or flatter, craggy plats of land. And beyond them, the glacier Nora had seen from the cabin porthole. She could get a better measure of it now, although its top portion was concealed under a visor of cloud. Other parts of it were entirely free from fog. It was incredible. You see a picture of a glacier on TV or in a magazine, and you see a smooth lump of white. But this was as textured as a mountain, black, brown, and white. And there were infinite varieties of that white, a whole visual smorgasbord of variation. White, blue white, turquoise white, gold white, silver white, translucent white, rendered glaringly alive and impressive, certainly more impressive than the breakfast. Depressing, isn't it? Hugo said. What? The fact that the day never ends? Nora felt uneasy with this observation. In what sense? He waited a second before responding. The never-ending light, he said, before taking a bite of a dry cracker. From April on, it's like living one interminable day. I hate that feeling. Tell me about it. You'd think they'd give the portholes curtains. Hardly slept since I've been on this boat. Nora nodded. How long is that again? He laughed. It was a nice laugh. Closed-mouthed, civilized, hardly a laugh at all. I drank a lot with Ingrid last night. Vodka has stolen my memory. Are you sure it's the vodka? What else would it be? His eyes were inquisitive and made Nora feel automatically guilty. She looked over at Ingrid, who was drinking her coffee and typing on her laptop. She wished she had sat with her now. Well, that was our third night, Hugo said. We have been meandering around the archipelago since Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. That's when we left Longyearbyen. Nora made a face as if to say she knew all this. Sunday seems forever away. The boat felt like it was turning. Nora was forced to lean a little in her seat. 20 years ago, there was hardly any open water in Svalbard in April. Look at it now. It's like cruising the Mediterranean. Nora tried to make her smile seem relaxed. Not quite. Anyway, I heard you got the short straw today. Nora tried to look blank, which wasn't hard. Really? You're the spotter, aren't you? She had no idea what he was talking about, but feared the twinkle in his eye. Yes, she answered. Yes, I am. I am the spotter. Hugo's eyes widened with shock, or mock shock. It was hard to tell the difference with him. The spotter? Yes. Nora desperately wanted to know what the spotter actually did, but couldn't ask. Well, bonny chance, said Hugo with a testing gaze. Merci, said Nora, staring out at the crisp Arctic light and a landscape she had only ever seen in magazines. I'm ready for a challenge.
Okay, any thoughts on what we've gone over with the last two parts? Or do you think we need to go to the next part?
I'm not sure. I don't know if we get a conversation started, I might be able to pitch in, but I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, for me, I think in this part, we're not being given enough of what's going on here yet. Whereas in a lot of the others, we could pick up stuff right away. So maybe one more section, Catherine, are you okay with that?
Sure. Okay, walking in circles. An hour later, and Nora was on an expanse of snow-covered rock, more of a skerry than an island, a place so small and uninhabitable it had no name, though a larger island, ominously titled Bear Island, was visible across the ice-cold water. She stood next to a boat. Not the Lance, the large boat she'd had breakfast on, that was moored safely out at sea, but the small motor dinghy that had been dragged up out of the water almost single-handedly by a big boulder of a man named Rune, who, despite his Scandinavian name, spoke in languid West Coast American. At her feet was a fluorescent yellow rucksack, and lying on the ground was the Winchester rifle that had been leaning against the wall in the cabin. This was her gun. In this life, she owned a firearm. Next to the gun was a saucepan with a ladle inside. In her hands was another, less deadly gun, a signal pistol, ready to fire a flare. She had discovered what kind of spotting she was doing. While 9 of the scientists conducted a climate tracking field work on this tiny island, she was the lookout for polar bears. Apparently, this was a very real prospect, and if she saw one, the very first thing she had to do was fire the flare. This would serve the dual purpose of frightening the bear away, and B, warning the others. It was not foolproof. Humans were tasty protein sources, and the bears were not known for their fear, especially in recent years, as the loss of habitat and food sources had made them ever more vulnerable and forced them to be more reckless. Soon as you fired the flare, said the eldest of the group, a beardless, sharp-featured man called Peter, who was the field leader and who spoke in a state of permanent fortissimo, bang the pan with the ladle, bang it like mad and scream. They have sensitive hearing. They're like cats. 9 times out of 10, the noise scares them off. And the other time out of 10, he nodded down at the rifle. You kill it before it kills you. Nora wasn't the only one with a gun. They all had guns. They were armed scientists. Anyway, Peter laughed and Ingrid patted her back. I truly hope, said Ingrid, laughing raspily, you don't get eaten. I would miss you. So long as you aren't menstruating, you should be okay. Jesus, what? They can smell the blood from a mile away. Another person, someone who was so thoroughly wrapped up it was impossible to tell who they were, even if she had known them, wished her good luck in a muffled, faraway voice. We'll be back in 5 hours, Peter told her. He laughed again, and Nora hoped that meant it was a joke. Walk in circles to keep warm. And then they left her, walking off over the rocky ground and disappearing into the fog. For an hour, nothing happened. Nora walked in circles. She hopped from left foot to right foot. The fog thinned a little, and she stared out at the landscape. She wondered why she was not back in the library. After all, this was definitely a bit shit. There were surely lives where she was sitting beside a swimming pool in the sunshine right now, lives where she was playing music or lying in a warm lavender-scented bath or having an incredible third date sex or reading on a beach in Mexico or eating in a Michelin-starred restaurant or strolling the streets of Paris or getting lost in Rome or tranquilly gazing at a temple near Kyoto or feeling the warm cocoon of a happy relationship. In most lives, she would have at least been physically comfortable. And yet she was feeling something new here, or something old that she had long buried. The glacial landscape reminded her that she was, first and foremost, a human living on a planet. Almost everything she had done in her life, she realized, almost everything she had bought and worked for and consumed, had taken her further away from understanding that she and all humans were really just one of 9 million species. If one advances confidently, Thoreau had written in Walden, in the directions of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. He had also observed that part of this success was the product of being alone. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. And Nora felt similarly in that moment. Although she had only been left alone for an hour at this point, she had never experienced this level of solitude before amid such unpopulated nature. She had thought in her nocturnal and suicidal hours that solitude was the problem, but that was because it hadn't been true solitude. The lonely mind in the busy city yearns for connection because it thinks human-to-human connection is the point of everything. But amid pure nature, or the tonic of wildness, as Thoreau called it, solitude took on a different character. It became in itself a kind of connection, a connection between herself and the world, and between her and herself. She remembered a conversation she'd had with Ash, tall and slightly awkward and cute and forever in need of a new songbook for his guitar. The chat hadn't been in the shop, but in the hospital when her mother was ill. Shortly after discovering she had ovarian cancer, she had needed surgery. Nora had taken her mom to see all the consultants at Bedford General Hospital, and she had held her mom's hand more in those few weeks than in all the rest of their relationship put together. While her mom was undergoing surgery, Nora had waited in the hospital canteen, and Ash, in his scrubs, and recognizing her as the person he chatted to on so many occasions in string theory, saw she looked worried and popped in to say hi. He worked at the hospital as a general surgeon, and she'd ended up asking him lots of questions about the sort of stuff he did. On that particular day, he'd removed an appendix and a bile duct. She also asked about normal post-surgery recovery time and procedure times, and he had been very reassuring. They'd ended up talking for a very long time about all sorts of things, which he seemed to sense she'd been in need of. He'd said something about not over-Googling health symptoms, and that had led to them talking about social media. He believed that the more people were connected on social media, the lonelier society became. That's why everyone hates each other nowadays, he reckoned, because they are overloaded with non-friend friends. Ever heard about Dunbar's number? And then he had told her about a man called Roger Dunbar at Oxford University, who had discovered that human beings were wired to know only 150 people, as that was the average size of hunter-gatherer communities. And the Domesday Book, Ash had told her, under the stark lighting of the hospital canteen. If you look at the Domesday Book, the average size of an English community at that time was 150 people, except in Kent, where it was 100 people. I'm from Kent. We have antisocial DNA. I've been to Kent, Nora had countered. I noticed that. But I like that theory. I can meet that many people on Instagram in an hour. Exactly. Not healthy. Our brains can't handle it, which is why we crave face-to-face communication more than ever. And which is why I would never buy my Simon and Garfunkel guitar chord songbooks online. She smiled at the memory, then was brought back to the reality of the Arctic landscape by the sound of a loud splash. A few meters away from her, between the rocky skerries she was standing on and Bear Island, there was another little rock, or collection of rocks sticking out of the water. Something was emerging from the sea froth, something heavy, slapping against the stone with a great weight, wet weight. Her whole body shaking, she got ready to fire the flare, but it wasn't a polar bear. It was a walrus. The fat, brown, wrinkled beast shuffled over the ice, then stopped to stare at her. She, or he, looked old, even for a walrus. The walrus knew no shame and could hold a stare for an indefinite amount of time. Nora felt scared. She only knew two things about walruses, that they could be vicious and that they were never alone for very long. There were probably other walruses about to haul out of the water. She wondered if she should fire the flare. The walrus stayed where it was, like a ghost of itself in the grainy light, but slowly disappeared behind a veil of fog. Minutes went by. Nora had 7 layers of clothes on, but her eyelids felt like they were stiffening and could freeze shut if she closed them for too long. She heard the voices of the others occasionally drift over to her, and for a while her colleagues returned close enough for her to see some of them. Silhouettes in the fog, hunched over the ground, reading ice samples with equipment she wouldn't have understood. But then they disappeared again. She ate one of the protein bars in her rucksack. It was cold and hard as toffee. She checked her phone, but there was no signal. It was very quiet. The quiet made her realize how much noise there was elsewhere in the world. Here, noise had meaning. You heard something and you had to pay attention. As she was chewing, there came another splashing sound, but this time from a different direction. The combination of fog and weak light made it hard to see, but it wasn't a walrus. That became clear when she realized the silhouette moving towards her was big, bigger than a walrus, and much bigger than any human. I bet we can talk about some of that.
Yeah, but you might want to read the little section, the little thing on the next page,
Oh,
because I think
okay.
it goes with that.
Oh, okay. A moment of extreme crisis in the middle of nowhere. Oh, fuck, whispered Nora into the cold.
Because I think that's part of what she finally realized, whatever that was coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think now we have enough to kind of put all three of these little, they do all go together. I think she's realizing that maybe one of the things she really was looking for and needing was a way to really be in a, for lack of a better way of saying it, in a sterile area and an environment where, she really has to kind of deal with herself and not everything around her. Like she said, out there, when you heard a noise or something that had real meaning, you had to pay attention. You had to, see what it was really there and about, because out there, you didn't have access to your phone all the time. You didn't have, and it was a little more dangerous than just being in the big city somewhere. But it also, I think, made her I think it's going to be the start of her looking more inside of herself, of who she is, that she's never really gotten in touch with, I think.
I don't know. It is so difficult living. I'm not alone. My roommate is here, but craving the social contact. I couldn't imagine only living in a community of 150 people. That might seem like a lot, but I don't know. There's something to be said for being alone and connecting with yourself, trying to figure out who and what you are, and accepting everything as it is. It is quite challenging, and I don't think a cell phone is going to help her when she's in that kind of situation and place where who's she going to call? I don't think Ghostbusters would help her. I don't know how fast they could get there, and a lot of things we deal with are like that polar bear that they're about ready to eat you.
Yeah, when you said that, don't know who you're going to call, I immediately thought Ghostbusters before you even said that. And it's funny because that goes back to kind of how we all, from those of us from, like, say, our generation, that was such a movie that kind of lives on in our memories, because we say, oh, who are you going to call? Everybody automatically jumps to that. But like you said, in that situation, you really are there, and you really are dependent on those around you for that. In that instance, for that protection, she really had to be able to deal with the cold, but yet still do what she was supposed to do, because the rest of them needed her to do what she's doing in order to help protect them and warn them, so that way nobody gets hurt. But I like the idea that they were talking about, that I agree. I think social media has made us more, in some ways, more angry, and more alone, rather than more connected. And we do crave that connection, but I do like the idea of where it says, because I'm trying to think, how many people do I really know, and how many are just out there as fillers in, so to speak, because if I really think about it, I have my family, I have my good close friends and stuff. So I probably have less than 150 people that I really interact, probably less than 50 even, that I really interact with on a more personal level. And then you get out into those that you run into based on circumstances, what you're doing, or like if I have to go do something with my car, so I go to the, auto shop or to the local, the nearby place where I can maybe get my oil changed or this or that. So at that point in time, yeah, I'm interacting with somebody. But if I really think about it, how many people really are in what I would consider my community? And I'd have to be honest, I don't think that it's more than about 50, maybe 60. But yet in that, I crave the wanting to be around and be with them, do things with them, but also wanting to have my alone time too, which is part of how I am. I'm an introverted extrovert. So I like to be with people, but when I don't want to be with people, I don't want to be with people, and I can be fine being alone.
Well, this chapter comes at an interesting time because for the past 2 weeks, I went to do some pet sitting and my phone got broken. So I was without a phone for a week. I had a new phone here at home, so I didn't want to go replace my phone where I was. I wanted to wait till I got home and get my new phone. So I got home, got my phone, but then I went to a Seneca ceremonial festival where I was camping for multiple days and I didn't have any signal there. So I still had no phone. So basically the last 2 weeks, I haven't had phone, been on social media. And I can say it has been wonderful. Like I love everybody that I'm attached to on social media, and I missed talking to, like you said, I probably, I have a small group of people that I'm actually in touch with on a consistent basis and feel close to. I have a whole ton of, Facebook friends is what I call them, which is not people I've really met in person or anything, but also people that I don't really interact with consistently. But it was good to get back in touch with everybody, but I have to say it was really nice not being attached to my phone. The minute I got back, I had to be attached to my phone again, and it was like, oh no. And I mean, I love social media because I've made friends, that I wouldn't have made otherwise. And I have such an inquisitive mind that the internet is just like Christmas to me every day because I can learn something new every day and I'm constantly learning. But within, I would say the past month, I have really been giving a lot of thought to even though I'm doing good things and I'm learning new things and I'm, you know, seeing new things and I'm excited and it's happy, it still is information overload on our brains. When you think about our bodies haven't really evolved all that much. Our brains haven't really evolved all that much since we were hunter-gatherers. And now we're just bombarded with all this information. Even when it's good, it's still like completely, every one of those, you have to look at it energetically. Every one of those interactions online, every one of those things that I look at, that I learn about, that's all energy, so you get, I mean, it's no wonder why we get headaches and stuff. People think, oh, my eyes are tired from looking at the screen. Well, yeah, that's part of it. Part of it, look at the amount of energy that you're taking into your body. Like wham, 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 every 2 seconds, something else. These people that just watch shorts all day long, no wonder they're stressed and overloaded and stuff. Like it's just so much to take on. And then there's stuff that you kind of have to watch, that just to make sure the world is still there, I guess. But I can so totally relate. I have lived by myself in the wilderness. I've lived with a group of 6. I have to correct that. I was not by myself. I had 2 dogs with me, and I wouldn't have survived without those 2 dogs. When you're alone in the wilderness like that, I completely understand. You realize that you need others to survive. In my case, I had my dogs and they kept me warm enough. Otherwise, I probably would have frozen to death up there, because it's very easy in hypothermia. You just go to sleep and you don't wake up. And that could have very easily happened if I hadn't had my dogs. And you realize how much you depend on, just sustenance, food. I mean, try growing food when it's freezing outside. You really run against challenges that are life and death. And it makes all the other BS that we tend to worry about and think about all day, it makes all that go away off into the fog. Like it doesn't even exist anymore, because you are in a life and death situation. Like, here she is, this bear is coming at her. I guarantee you nothing else in the world carries any importance in this moment for her other than what is she going to do to handle this bear. And when you're up there on the mountain by yourself, I mean, I encourage anybody that has the opportunity to go on some kind of a quest, or whatever you want to call it, where you're able to go off by yourself like that, do it. In my culture and Native American culture, they would send the young men out when they became, I don't know, 12, 13 probably. They sent them out into the wilderness on their own to teach them these things. And I think it's a wonderful lesson for everyone. It makes you understand that you are not sustainable alone, whether you're depending on the life of a plant or an animal that gave its life for you to eat, or whether you're depending on wood to burn, the life of the tree, wood to burn to keep you warm, whatever it is, you understand how much you depend on others.
That is such like a slap in the face that, hey, pay attention here, appreciate what you have. And I know that I could not, at this point in my life, survive out there by myself. But then also, I have so many quirks in me that don't want to be around certain people and things like that. They do this or they don't do that or whatever. And how you survive anyway. I'm probably not making a lot of sense to some people, but living alone and requiring help to even feed myself, at least presentably, I could make a mess of myself and stick my face in my plate or whatever, and I can eat finger foods and things like that. But being so grateful for the comforts of life, but still feeling so distant from other people's realities and thoughts of how you should be or what you should do. It's such a big chasm to have to feel like you have to leap across every step you take. I don't know, I'll leave it at that for now.
was just going to say, in your case, one, you have your natural desire for connection with people and stuff, but at the same point, the connection you need is for to be with those people that can understand you, empathize with you, be there for you, and help you and build you up, and not deal with the ones that don't have the ability to be that type of person. Because let's face it, there are people. People are all different types of people, and depending on how they're made up, some people have more empathy, more feeling, more understanding for other people's situations and stuff like that. And so therefore, to be around them is easier than to be around somebody else of a different nature. So that's the other part, and I think we all deal with that, even for me, even though I'm relatively healthy, I have, things going on, but for the most part, I'm healthy. I'm out there. I can fend for myself and stuff. But at the same point, I'm alone. I live alone. I don't, I miss having somebody here just to interact with and to have that camaraderie, or however you want to put it, just. And so then when I go out and I'm out and about, I want to find people that can be there and feel that and help with that. But at the same point, I don't want to deal with all the mush and the, and the issues and, some of the issues of their life, not me. And I'm not trying to be mean about what their lives are and stuff, but there are people that you just connect with, and there are people you don't, and that's the other part of it. In our drive and our desire for connection, but it's connection with the right people for the right reasons, and sometimes we think we know all the reasons or all of what we're trying to look for, what we're trying to find. I think that's what part of Nora's thing is. I think she's trying to find that connection for her life to help then grow her life out to out of that right connection somewhere, to what it would naturally grow out to be a life that she could probably want to stay actively connected in. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
all
think
oh, sorry.
no, I was gonna just add, and I think that's something that we're all looking for, is that we're all kind of in that boat where she is. She's just having the opportunity to explore all those different lives, whereas we don't necessarily get the chance, or we do, but we don't follow it through all the way either.
It addresses the BS standing for belief systems as well as bullshit. It is so difficult to just be and not have to be a human doing instead of a human being.
Absolutely. That is a huge thing. And, people feel like they have to do constantly or learn constantly these days. When you compare our lives, I mean, even just back when I was a kid, nobody called anybody after 9 o'clock at night. Like there were rules, you know what I mean? The TV, I mean, maybe on weekends, Friday night or something, the TV would be on until it went off and they played the national anthem or whatever. But most of the time through the week, the TV went off at 9 o'clock, lights went out. Like people slept full nights of sleep. Then they got up, they did hard work all day. Nowadays, people are still doing the hard work and everything, but then they come home and then they get on the computer and then their brain is, flooded with all these messages. And I really think it's a good thing to put the phone away. I see my granddaughter on her phone constantly, and I have to try to get her doing other things. Normally what she's doing on there is talking to friends, so I don't want to discourage that because, she's really enjoying being in school with other kids this year as opposed to being in school online. And I know she's building friendships right now, but I think we're putting a lot of undue stress on ourselves, that we don't even realize because it's just normal. That's normal these days for people to be their phones next to their bed when they go to bed. If they don't turn their notification thingy off, they got this thing dinging, 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 dinging all night long. Like, I can hear my mom's phone. She doesn't turn her stuff off. So, um, silence is an amazing thing to me. I know that some people are very uncomfortable with silence, but it is an amazing healing thing for me. And I mean, you almost never get someplace where it's completely silent, but like when I was camping, the only thing I heard was the bugs, the crickets and the cicadas or whatever they're called. And there's something very healing about that. Um, there's something very healing about getting your feet on real ground instead of always having shoes on or always being on some kind of manufactured floor or concrete. It is good to not be surrounded by wires, to, be able to sleep in a place where there isn't electricity coursing through the room around you all the time. It doesn't seem like that would affect us, but if you go out away from it, you'll feel the difference in your body. We just have to, recognize these things and take these breaks when we can, and try to set boundaries with ourselves. I mean, I'm talking to myself here. I have to set boundaries with myself because I can be on the phone all the time and I wake up frequently through the night and I have to not allow myself to reach for my phone, because if I reach for my phone, then I'm just up for the rest of the night, learning about something. So when I wake up in the middle of the night, I just, send prayers out for people or something like that instead of reaching for my phone, and get my brain engaged again.
I think this is a good point for us to look at and use and kind of help ourselves to re-gauge and reconnect with ourselves in a way from this little portion of the book, because I agree. I mean, I've been out, when I was younger and stuff, we didn't have all the technology, and I can remember where, I'll be honest, my attention span and focus span has definitely shortened. And I hate to admit that, but if I'm being honest, it has. Whereas when I was younger, I could sit and focus on watching a whole TV show because we didn't have the other outside distractions, sitting there, oh, that pinged, what was that? Why, I do have my phone at night set to silent. When I go to bed, it just has I set my alarm to wake me up and the alarm will go off and I'll hear it. But otherwise, overall, it's set on silent or even vibrate, and it's off to the side on, and I have it sitting on a book. So even when it vibrates, I don't really hear it. But when it goes off for the alarm, I get the alarm in the morning. So I'm lucky on that end. it's usually other things that wake me up in the middle of the night, and then my brain starts kicking in, and then I can't go to sleep. But I don't look at my phone. I purposely will not look at a clock, and I will not look at my phone. If I do wake up, I just try and get myself calmed down so I can go back to sleep, because there are times where I'll wake up, and, I won't be able to go back to sleep, and it drives me up the wall, because it's like I like getting a full night's sleep. Like, hate to admit it, last night I took a little bit of ZQL to help me sleep the whole night, because the last 2 or 3 nights I kept waking up kind of, and I kept having a hard time falling back to sleep to get a full night's sleep. And I'm just like, okay, I'll be damned if I don't get me a whole night's sleep last night, even though it was kind of induced. But when I woke up this morning, it was nice. I'm like, okay, it was nice to, in a way, I felt the difference. It's like, oh, it was nice to feel like I slept the whole night. Yet my body's still drained because of the other nights where I didn't sleep the full night, so that's another part, and having all the, like you said, the gadgetry and all the stuff, I don't think that does us a lot of good in a lot of cases, because we are have so much, how can I say it, energy that is neutral, but even being around it, sometimes too much can become negative. Like, like the power sources in our houses, like electricity and things like that. Even though for the most part they're for good things, but even then, if we don't get out and away and out, like you said, into nature. And I know for a fact that a lot of times that I haven't done it in a while, I need to do it, is to go out and put my feet in some grass, even if it's at a park. Just take my shoes and socks off, and just stand there with my feet in the grass. That can have tremendous effect. And I know that, and I've done that before, and I've loved it. But it goes back to the same thing with that connection, with the face-to-face connection with people. We crave that, and we're internally wired for those things. And I think that's how God, for on how I look at it, but infinite intelligence, the universe. However, I think that's how that was all created, and I think God did that for a purpose, to help us in our connection to Him, infinite intelligence, the universe. However, to bring us to that core, basic, calming, natural energy state. If I'm right, I'm hoping I'm going in the right direction. I'm not sure. Hopefully you or Lori can jump in and tell me if I'm on the right direction.
I don't think it's up to us to tell you whether you're on the right direction or path or whatever. It's like, in my mind, I think that nothing was made that wasn't a thought first. And if we go with the God thing, that He spoke us all into being, it was His thought, His idea. If you go with the science thing, that's something I can't really even understand sometimes. But every generation has said that, oh, I don't know how these kids going to make it. They don't know how it was then or whatever. And it's constantly an evolutionary process, hopefully growing in a good, positive outcome. But it has been that way forever. And I don't think it's for us to tell you one way or the other, Dan. we're all on this journey, and having time with our own soul's journey is what's important. We're more than competing with whatever you see going on. I'm not as good as that person, or I'm better than that person, or otherwise I'm no more than an animal going through this life that's unaffected by whatever someone else decides.
Bring up a good point. So is that part of what Nora's? I'm wondering, is that something we can surmise with Nora? Is that part of what she's trying to learn or figure out then too? Is that part of why she has such a disconnect with life, I guess, so to speak, is that and maybe this is something that we all do a little bit on our own subconscious level, because we all do each have our own journeys that we are on, even though they are interconnected through all those, connections. And maybe that's why we desire that face-to-face connection then so much too, is I think part of it is for that, I can't think of the word I was just thinking. I can't think of it right now, but also that
Communal.
yeah. But in that, because like you said, we all have our own journeys that we are on, but we are affected by those around us. But at the same point, like in Nora's case, she just seemed like she really stopped wanting to really live, because she didn't really know which journey that she was supposed to be on. And I think that's something that we all question, if we're honest. Am I on the right journey? Am I on the right? And I think that's part of why we desire and crave the face-to-face human connection, is to maybe help validate that. And maybe in her case, she never really felt any real validation, maybe.
The key word there is supposed to be. Where are we supposed to be? It depends so much. That's an infinite choices. The universe is constantly expanding, and so the supposed to be is where we get tripped up.
Yep, the grass always looks greener on the other side, doesn't it? Throughout this whole book, she's been imagining this perfect life. She doesn't know exactly what it is, but it's just one where she's physically comfortable and emotionally comfortable, and everything is going good. But we all know that life has ups and downs. It doesn't matter which life you're living, and you just gotta accept reality. I mean, so much of our discontent with this world is because we're just not willing to accept what's actually happening. We're wanting something else to be happening. And I have witnessed enough miracles in this life to know that everything is happening for a reason, in God's divine timing. And I can't explain it, but that appears to be the way it is to me anyway. And having been, so to speak, with my people for the last week, which I had never done. That was a new experience for me. I hadn't been around other Senecas. And you know, we did not live in individual teepees. We lived in a longhouse where the whole community lived together in one building. And we danced together. You know, this past week we did dances that our people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. And no matter what the weather conditions, no matter the heat, uh, no matter anything, these things continue and life goes on. And it was a very primal kind of connection that I got. And I'm very grateful for it. And back to the grounding thing that you were talking about, Dan, grounding is very important. It really is, especially, I mean, think about all the people whose feet haven't come in contact with dirt since they were a kid. You know, a lot of people, they get dressed in the morning, they put their shoes on, like they don't have any contact with anything other than something that's man-made. And so if you live in a place where you don't have access to nature, you can always buy a bag of sand or dirt if you prefer, and just put it in like a wash basin, like a kitchen, a tub, and just put your feet in it while you're sitting in your recliner or whatever. You know, just put your feet in it. That's still a way that you can connect and ground. And what happens when you do that is all this kinetic energy that we pick up through all these things that we do all day, all that goes into the ground. Mother Nature can take care of that kinetic energy, that dysregulated energy. And you can just make that in your intent to send all that energy into the ground. And you'll find, I mean, there are people that, goodness, there are people that are hooking up all kinds of things to their bed and grounding their sheets and all this. I don't know that all that's necessary, but if you can at least get your feet in some dirt or get your hands in some dirt, have a plant in your house where you're working with soil and stuff, and connect to the sky. Tonight, it started last night, and tonight and tomorrow night, the Perseid meteor shower is going on. And so tonight, when it gets good and dark, go outside and look up at the sky and see if you can see some meteor showers, because they're supposed to be about 100 an hour. I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise right now. I hope that's not coming through. You know, look up. Now, you might not be able to see it good if you're in a place that's really highly lit. You might have to go out away from the light of the city a little bit, but it's really amazing if you can get in a dark spot and I remember them from last year. It's really mind blowing how many there were. It was fascinating and just reminded me of how huge the universe is, and, you know, the galaxy and all. I don't even know the words for all the things, but it reminds you of how small we are, I guess. I hope everybody has a great week and get your feet in some dirt and look up at the sky. You can do both at the same time.
Amen,
Um,
sister. Have a great
yeah,
week.
I agree. Sorry, Lori. Didn't mean to cut
No,
you
that's
off. I'm so
fine.
sorry about that.
Sorry, I just said have a great week.
I was going to say, just as my final little thing and wrapping up, yeah, I can remember, you know, it's been a while since I've had my feet out in some grass or something, even at the local park. But I was sitting here physically really remembering how it felt. And there was just something about the coolness of the grass, and it was energizing, but it was also calming too. It was weird. And I remember that, and I get it. And, you know, in thinking that, it's like, I haven't done that in so long. It's like, and as I thought about it more, my body's kind of like, oh yeah, that would be nice, just to go get my feet in it and maybe lay down in it and just kind of, you know, roll around in it like we used to do as kids, you know, just roll down the hill. and yet the fun that you got out of it, but yet the connection and the sense that you got out of it too. And we didn't even realize it back then, but now I'm realizing it more. And I actually live outside of the city, and I can actually see the stars in the sky at night, and that might be something I'll try and do tonight if I have time. If not, maybe I'll drive up north and see people. I think I've seen them, or a little bit of them, once before and not realized it. I saw the shooting stars and stuff and things like that. That is awesome to see when you can see that. But it's interesting, going back to the book, how we all are looking for what we term that perfect life. But I'm going to go out on a weird limb and say in this way: there is no such thing as a perfect life that we can imagine. The perfect life is the life that we're living right now through God's grace and his guidance and like you said, Captain, through the connectivity of what he allows and puts in front of us. And maybe focusing on that is where we can realize that, hey, I'm in the perfect life. It doesn't have all the perfect aspects I think it should have, but it's perfect for me right now. And to consider and take the joy out of that, and knowing that no matter what's going on, it will get better, and it's going to get worse throughout the course of your life. But that's part of the journey. That's part of living the perfect life, as perfect as you can, and quit trying to make it more than what it is. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up for the Saturday Morning Mastermind. You can find us on Facebook at Mindset Mastery Collective, and our page there, and has all the information of how you can join us here on the Zoom to share your thoughts and feelings about this. We are still in the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Sorry, none of us have the book to show it to you, but it's a great book. It's a fiction book, but it's been a great book. We've gotten a lot of things that we pulled out of it that, I'll be honest, never thought we would pull out of it, but we have. You can find us on YouTube at Mindset Mastery Collective there also, with all the replays of all the videos that we have. And you can go back and look and catch up on anything that you have thoughts about. Interest in. I think we've covered a lot of genres over the years, and you can join us here on the Saturday Morning Mastermind every Saturday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And so with that, so long from the Saturday Morning Mastermind. See you next week.